Picture a typical Tuesday morning at a middle school. The bell rings, lockers slam shut, hundreds of voices bounce off the cinder block walls, and a flood of bodies pushes through the hallway. For most kids, that sensory overload is just the background noise of growing up. But for a specific, quiet minority of students, that same daily routine operates as a constant, active threat. Looking at this population grid, we can see that exactly 7% of children fall into this isolated group. They meet the criteria for a severe clinical condition that is triggered by the basic, mandatory requirements of attending school. The very building built to help them learn and socialize is systematically traumatizing them. The adults in the room usually notice these children, but they almost always assign the wrong label to the behavior. They see a kid who avoids eye contact or sits alone at recess and write it off as a naturally shy personality. Shyness is a temporary temperament trait. A shy child might be quiet when they first join a new classroom, but they warm up over time. Most importantly, it doesn't stop them from functioning. A shy child eventually relaxes and enjoys the playground. This chart shows distress levels over time. Notice the line for shyness dropping as the child adapts. Now look at the line for social anxiety disorder. The distress remains elevated and flatlines at a high level. It is a persistent clinical dread of judgment and humiliation. In the classroom, that dread looks like severe stomach aches on group project days. It looks like skipping lunch, hiding in public restrooms to avoid free time, or completely freezing when called on to read. If you ignore those symptoms, they do not resolve themselves. Untreated childhood social anxiety predictably evolves into adolescent school refusal and eventually adult depression and severe social avoidance. Leaving a clinical pathology mislabeled as a personality trait allows the disorder to mature into the social avoidance and depression that often shape a child's adult experience. This trajectory is preventable. With early, evidence-based intervention, the prognosis is excellent. The gold standard for treating social anxiety relies on cognitive behavioral therapy paired with graduated exposure. This is graduated exposure. We start small with eye contact before stepping up to larger hurdles like peer engagement. To keep these steps stable, the child needs support pillars, social skills training to navigate conversations, and parental coaching so adults stop inadvertently facilitating avoidance. Curing the disorder requires the child to actively and repeatedly step toward the exact social situations that terrify them. But when we look at how we normally deliver this treatment, we run into a logistical paradox. Traditional therapy usually happens in a quiet, isolated clinical office, often miles away from the peers, the bells, and the very teachers that actually trigger the child's symptoms. Look at the environment on the left. You cannot practice making friends in a crowded cafeteria if you sit alone with one adult therapist. The clinician has no direct access to the actual exposure targets. They can talk about the fear, but they cannot guide the child through the physical practice of confronting it in real time. To successfully treat childhood social anxiety, the clinical intervention has to occur geographically inside the K-12 ecosystem causing the distress. Healthcare providers are now solving this by bringing the clinic directly into the K-12 building. In Georgia, an operational model called MentalSpace School is currently executing this embedded therapy approach across school districts. This math breaks down the network structure. A dedicated therapist team centrally utilizes teletherapy to connect directly with the student, teachers, and parents. By communicating directly with the teacher, they make precise classroom adjustments to support daily exposure work. Embedding the clinician directly in the school building turns the everyday classroom into a controlled laboratory for healing. When aligning treatment with the environment, the results in the student population are distinct and measurable. This dual bar chart tracks the outcomes of the embedded model, an 89% improvement in student attendance and a 92% reduction in clinical anxiety. Crucially, this model removes financial barriers. Services are covered at $0 for Medicaid patients and are fully in-network with all major commercial plans. If you are an educator or a parent watching a child struggle, stop dismissing persistent, impairing distress as shyness. You can initiate a conversation with a licensed clinician today at MentalSpaceSchool.com. A child's silent struggle in the classroom does not have to be a permanent condition. When we put the right intervention in the exact right environment, we change the trajectory of their entire life.